Hello everyone, welcome to another Coffee with the Curator here at Litchfield Historical Society. I'm Alex Dubois, the Curator of Collections here, and today you join me in one of our exhibit galleries here at the History Museum. So this is the Sold, Made, and Grown exhibit that we opened back in 2019, and this exhibit talks about the history of Litchfield's local businesses and their impact on the town and its identity and the community itself. So the good news about this exhibit is that we have decided to keep it up for another year. It was so well received and popular with visitors that we're going to just rotate new objects in, put some new stories in here, and then keep it up for another year. So this has given us the opportunity to bring you back inside the exhibit while we're closed here at the Society and take a closer look at a couple of the businesses that we have featured in the exhibit. So today's program will really be a sort of a tale of two manufacturers. So we're going to look at two of the industries that were here in town. One that had a very short but really interesting history, and then one that had a really long impact on the town and a role in the community. So we're going to start with some of the objects you can see sort of to my left here. So if you think about Connecticut, you probably know that one of its major industries in the 19th century was clockmaking. So towns like Bristol, Plymouth, Terryville, named after Eli Terry, Thomaston, named after Seth Thomas, and even down in Waterbury, where they had the firm that became Timex. There were many communities in Connecticut that were making a lot of clocks. Litchfield had a smaller clock industry, but one that was really interesting, and there were quite a few manufacturers here in town. In fact, if you go a couple doors down from our History Museum, you'll see the home and workshop of Timothy Barnes, who was a clockmaker. So that's just how close we are to someone making clocks here in the 19th century. So the business we're going to talk about today is the one that you can see. You can see these two objects here. This is called the Litchfield Manufacturing Company. It was really short, 1850 to 1855 about, give or take a couple of years. But it did some really interesting stuff with clockmaking. So it was formed by Dr. Josiah Beckwith, who had a practice here in Litchfield. He had a drugstore up on North Street. And it really started making metal goods, so things like brass nails, decorative clasps, decorative hinges, sort of some of the smaller stuff that they would then ship out to other companies to use in their products. But pretty quickly after it opened, they decided to start making more finished products, things like card cases, daguerreotype cases, portfolios, trays, even some small furniture items, and of course clocks, which we'll talk about today. And they're known for really three things, and I can show you an example. So the Litchfield Manufacturing Company did a lot of things using paper mache. They also did a lot of japanning, and if you look at this is a daguerreotype case. Japanning is the sort of finish that you can see here, this dark finish that really emulates some of the lacquerware that was made in Japan. So they did a lot of japanning on the products, and they also did a lot of really intricate detailing. So you can see on this daguerreotype case, there's a lot of gilt paint, some detail, and then those actual flowers, if you can see on the video, are actually made of something called mother of pearl. So that is part of an oyster shell, and that's been laid into the design here. So they're really, really intricate objects. The back, as you can see, it's more intricate. This is actually a leather back as well. And the paper mache we're talking about is not the kind that you might have used that's like a paper pulp or a mash. It's actually really thin sheets of soft paper that have been layered, glued together, and they can actually mold that, they can shape it, they can japan the front of it, and then they can decorate it as well. So that's what we talk about when we're saying paper mache. So the company actually brought in artisans from Germany and England, which were really the leading countries that were doing paper mache goods at the time. So they brought them over to Litchfield. They paid them quite a good salary actually. And those artisans both made the products and taught the local workforce how to make them as well. So this company was located just south of the town center with 4 or 5 buildings right on Bantam Lake. And they were really sort of well received by the community. So if you think about 1850s, this is a time period where industry is sort of bypassing towns like Litchfield to go to places along the Naugatuck River Valley, so Waterbury, Naugatuck, upwards to Torrington. So people were really happy that there was a business here in town that was growing and doing a lot of this manufacturing, and hopeful that it would sort of spark manufacturing here in Litchfield. And so what we know is that they were covered a lot in the newspapers. So the Litchfield Republican, the Litchfield Inquirer, they had a lot of stories about people visiting this factory, what they saw, advertisements for their goods. So in 1851, there's a lot of posts in the Inquirer about people visiting the factory, and they say that there were as many as 50 employees to 60 employees, and then there was one article that even said 70 employees. So it grew pretty quickly to quite a good sized firm there. They were making between, around 50 to 55 clocks a day. So something like you'd see up here, and then we have another example to take a look at. And these clocks sold anywhere between $5 to $25 depending on the model of the clock. So even though it had a short history, it really grew quickly and was doing pretty successful firm here in Litchfield. A fun fact about the Litchfield Manufacturing Company is actually that none other than P.T. Barnum, the famous showman who had a circus in his museum and politician, was both a major shareholder in the firm and also elected as one of its directors in 1851. So that's sort of a really fun fact about this company here. So then I have another object I can pull to show you. So this is a card case. So this has a hinged top that would hold things like calling cards and other small items like that. Again, you can see really intricate painting on that, and you can see the mother of pearl inlay to form the flower there. And on the reverse, another scene as well. So they're making really high quality finished goods like this. They're simple in design, but they're really well finished. And we're actually, if I can get this to switch the camera, which has to be somewhere. There it is. We'll take a look at a few of the objects that we have here in the exhibit. So this is what's called the sewing table. So this was produced by the Litchfield Manufacturing Company. And you can see that in its design, it's actually quite simple. So what they did is they took the kind of box that they would be making in the firm anyway, and then they took that box and then they just put it on a pair of wooden legs to form a sewing table. So it's a really good way for them to take a product they were making and make a new product as well. And you can see this one is a bit more elaborate than some of the ones you might see, because it does have these really nice legs with all these sort of C-scrolls joined together and interlocked to form the base, the center stretcher there, and then you can see that this box sort of just sits on top of it. If I get the camera to focus, you can see some of there we go. So the thing that they did really well, again, was ornamentation and decoration. So you can see that they did a lot of intricate motifs in gold. They had painted scenes of flowers that are there, and then on the corner of the top. The side of the legs, if you can see that has all outlined in gold and gold motifs as well, the fleur-de-lis at the bottom. And then the top has seasoned wear, but it had this really nice painted scene of a few children playing in some sort of ruin. So again, you can see a really nice product, simple, but really well decorated with sort of their model. And then clocks definitely became their principal product pretty quickly. So this is an advertisement we have that shows the range of clocks that they made. So they made both shelf clocks, and then you can see a couple in the middle there are clocks that would have hung on the wall. The one on the right in the middle actually has a number of patriotic motifs, some eagles and flags, and we have an example of this clock in our collection as well. So these clocks were largely made of wood, with the paper mache sort of being a face, a decorative face that was applied to it. They had things like the mother and pearl inlay, really intricate painted scenes, and other different things incorporated as well. So they were very, pretty clocks to look at. The clockworks would have been made somewhere else, probably Bristol, purchased by the firm and put into their paper mache cases. And they were also likely sending their cases to other clockmakers to use. And then it's a mirror, but this is a really, really interesting example that we haven't seen another example of. This is a mirror clock that was made by the manufacturing company. So the mirror on the bottom, a clock on the top with a reverse painted tablet there, and if you can make out, let me see if I can get it to show. You can see there it says Litchfield Manufacturing Company, Connecticut. So this is quite different from some of the other examples because it is a wall clock that has the mirror as well. But I also pulled a pretty typical example of one of their shelf clocks. So you can see here, it's a wooden base, again with paper mache overlaid. You can see the dial has, the clock face has Litchfield Manufacturing Company, Connecticut on it. You can make out that there's a nice landscape scene at the bottom there, and then you can see just how much mother of pearl inlay and painting they did on the cases for these different clocks. Alrighty. So in 1854, this company actually, we know from newspaper postings that P.T. Barnum convinced the directors of the company to merge the Litchfield Manufacturing Company with another business who was invested in another clock business. So the company transferred their assets, their holdings, over to something called the Terry and Barnum Clock Company, and production moved out of Litchfield and down to Bridgeport. And it was only a year later, in 1855, that another merger that Barnum wanted with the Jerome Clock Company, and some bad business that was going on, some downturn in business, forced that firm to close and declare bankruptcy. So Litchfield Manufacturing Company started up here, pretty successful, and then through some business dealings it ended up closing, so it had a very short history. But they did make quite a lot of pieces, and if you go on auction websites or you go on different museums collections, you'll see them turn up from time to time. So our second manufacturer is conveniently located just around the corner here. So this is just fast forward about 100 years into the future here in Litchfield, and we have what's called the Warren MacArthur Corporation. So Warren MacArthur is both the name of the company and the name of the gentleman who started it, who was the principal engineer. I'll show you a picture on this wall here. You can actually see Warren MacArthur himself. So Warren MacArthur was trained at Cornell Engineering. He started his career designing industrial lighting and industrial lanterns. He went to Phoenix with his brother. They opened a really interesting array of businesses, everything from a Dodge dealership to a radio station, and they even had a tour company that used modified Dodges that were like early RVs that were called the Wonder Bus, and they took people all around Arizona and showed them the sights in the desert and things like that. So he was really just a really intelligent businessman who had an eye for new things and starting new businesses. His first foray into furniture, which is what we know him for today, happened when the brothers opened the Arizona Biltmore Hotel in 1929, and Warren was charged with actually designing all the furniture that would go into that hotel. So he started working mostly in steel, in tubular steel, and this is in 1928, 1929, only a few years after designers like Marcel Reuter had started using tubular steel for their furniture. So Warren is definitely, at least in American design, really on the forefront of using this material. But he quickly switches to his signature thing, which is aluminum. So tubular aluminum furniture is what he really designed. So the hotel opened in 1929. Shortly after, we had, of course, the stock market crashed, and the hotel was forced to close, and the MacArthur brothers lost ownership of it. And Warren took his furniture business, brought it to Los Angeles, where he really had some success, and we have different records indicating that his furniture was in movie stars' homes like Clark Gable, and big corporate offices and theaters and things like that. So he had some success in Los Angeles with his furniture. And I think now's probably a good time to actually show you a close-up of a piece of that furniture. So this is sort of an armchair that was designed by Warren MacArthur. You can see that we've decided to actually exhibit it with all the cushions removed because we really want people to see the design and the construction of this chair, because those are highlights of MacArthur's pieces of furniture. So you can see this is all tubular aluminum. It's something called anodized aluminum, which gives it this sort of polished or muted silver finish, because Warren MacArthur did not want to have chrome on his furniture. It also means it wears really well, and the process of doing it you can actually put color into the metal, which means you don't have to paint the metal, which means it won't chip or flake off. But while other designers like Breuer were trying to get this sort of seamless chrome design, MacArthur really wanted to feature the joinery of his furniture in its actual design. And if you can see them, these little joints here, all these little joining pieces, are actually something that he patented himself and he used in almost all of his furniture moving forward. So a good way to distinguish Warren MacArthur furniture is by looking for those little joint pieces that are all over his furniture. And then you can see up top here we have, in the exhibit, we've actually gotten one of his patents, and there are any number of these patents that if you look online, this one's for a side chair, but you can see again the joints that are down there and the different ways that he was constructing his furniture. And then here is a really wonderful photograph, and this is Warren MacArthur when he came to Litchfield, when he came to Bantam in his factory, and the gentleman right there standing next to his wife is Warren MacArthur. So when he's ran into some troubles in Los Angeles, he moved his business to New York and then eventually here to Litchfield, 1937, 1938. He actually went into the vacated factory building that you can see in that photograph that was left by the ball bearing factory that had left. And he began producing furniture like the chair you see here, which was made in Bantam. But very quickly after coming to Litchfield, he transitioned his business into making airplane seating. The reason for that, you can probably guess, it's 1938, 1939. World War II was ramping up. and America is producing planes to send to its allies and later to use for its own purposes. So with Warren MacArthur having some background in seating, some background in airplane seating, even when he was in Los Angeles, and a really good sense for making lightweight and really strong furniture, he's approached to turn his factory over to making airplane seating. So in the war years, at its peak, the Warren MacArthur company went from around 50 employees to 1,200 employees, and they produced over 150 seat designs. And actually, about 65 to 80% of all the seats used on American airplanes during World War II were made by Warren MacArthur right here in Litchfield, in Bantam, which is a pretty phenomenal statistic to have. So he's doing that, and actually I have some different designs. These are from our archival collection. These are produced by the Warren MacArthur Corporation. You can see that they have the stamp on the back, so these are sort of photo proofs of different designs they made for airplane seating at the time. So that one was the pilot seat. This is the engineer's seat, the flight engineer's seat. This is the navigator's stool. And then this one is an interesting photo that shows the pilot seat actually installed in one of these planes here. And if anyone wants to learn more about the Warren MacArthur Corporation, we do have more of those photos and a number of other paperwork and documents and drawings and designs in our archives as well. So please do come when we're open again and let us know, and we'll be happy to share that with you. So the war goes on. War finishes. Warren MacArthur has sort of achieved peak production. It's the largest it's ever been. But when the war ends and the airline industry doesn't grow fast enough to sort of accommodate his model business at this point, he faces some financial difficulties, and the company actually closes in 1948 here in Litchfield. But that is not the end of the story of Warren MacArthur here, because only a couple years later, a new business comes, purchases the factory, purchases the assets of the machinery of the business, and they actually begin making airplane seating again under a new company. And from 1950 all the way until 2002, airplane seats were made here in Litchfield, and the companies that filled this factory and another building that was built were really leaders in the field of designing interiors for aerospace. So this is a company that had, in its own time, had a very short history in Litchfield, but who had a really long legacy of being a local business and a local source of employment for Litchfield individuals. So that is actually it for today's Coffee with Curators, a short one, but I hope you enjoyed looking at some of the objects here in the exhibit. I would say when we open again, please do come back and take a look at the full exhibit, because there's a lot of wonderful stuff in here as well. And then join us here on Facebook Live on Friday for another History Museum Mystery with Kate, and then come back on Tuesday of next week for another Coffee with Curators. If you have any questions about what you saw today, or if you have any comments about what you might like to see in these Coffee with the Curator programs, please do just comment on this video or reach out to us in email, or just any ideas for what you might like to see us do while we're doing all this online content. And do follow us on Facebook and Instagram and Twitter, because we are doing a lot of different type of online content that we want to share with you. And we hope to see you again, and as always, stay safe and stay healthy, and join us next time.